Coach Joe here with the Axiom Fitness Academy, and I've got my man, Coach Dave, and we're gonna be breaking down kind of the next step, right? You're already watching this video after having watched our video breaking down bi-plexes, or what you might know as supersets. And so I wanna start this video before we go into our 3 exercise set, you might call it a circuit, with the fact that the rules of engagement from our previous biplex video all still apply. There are definitely great exercise pairings, and what you're gonna find in the way that we talk about our triplexes is that the first portion, the first 2 exercises, you wanna follow those same rules, right? The same pairings are gonna still fit together well, but now, maybe for a couple reasons, triplexes, as we talked about in the intro for this video, these might be a fun way to train. You might, over time, have some of your clients where not only you've progressed from supersets to triplexes because they've gotten further along, but you might also notice, like I have some clients who they just really enjoy training that way. They leave feeling like, man, I feel like I got a great sweat. I feel like I accomplished so much more in our training session together than I would ever do alone. I get that kind of feedback a lot. And so once people move well, and especially once they've learned the patterns and the exercises you teach them, then integrating a wide variety of triplexes can be fun and also super effective. All right, so you'll see here in this, we've kind of categorized it into 2 levels. And part of this has to do with their level of strength, conditioning, endurance, just overall fitness. There's a couple factors that go into play here based on the movements that you choose. But the first place, let's say you've built upon biplexes, you've got them comfortable with the foundational movements, they're starting to get stronger, and now you want to start to tag in this 3rd exercise. Well, one of the easiest places you could do this, if you look back at our biplexes, you saw we had some upper and lower body supersets that worked well together, like squatting and pulling, right? Just that as an example. But you could go through the other pairings. So for simplicity here, because there are a lot of variations, we're just gonna say lower body followed by upper body. And the reason we do that is because generally we wanna prioritize what's the most taxing movement first. So this is also really effective, I'd say, for clients who maybe they're not gonna do a lot of cardio and conditioning. Maybe they have some fat loss goals. Well, we're still able to maintain some strong intensity with our muscular challenge, whatever our exercises are, but because there's gonna be less rest involved, it's definitely gonna expend some more calories in the workout without just turning it into a conditioning session. So lower body followed by upper body, and then the real magic here is now the selection in the 3rd exercise. So Dave, I'll let you talk a little bit about our choices on the 3rd one.
Yeah, so part of level 1 is like the 3rd exercise we're gonna add in probably is not gonna be an exercise that might be as equally taxing as either that upper or lower exercise in one of the first 2 positions. So in this 3rd position, we like to use 3 different types of exercises here. The first one would be core. Maybe you have that person who really want to work their core quite a bit, or really enjoys working their core a lot, right? That's a great move. There's usually a great core move you can pair with any of these other 2 up here to make it everything finishes with the core, because actually the human psychology is whatever we finish with is also like what we feel like we did the most of, right? It leaves a lasting impression. So it shows, number 1, that you're paying attention to the person if they like working core. It's also a great way to keep sneaking in core without having to devote a bunch of time to it in its own sort of segment. The second type of exercise we like to pair on our 3rd is maybe a mobility exercise, or an exercise that's gonna help you get more out of the other 2 exercises that you're doing. For example, let's say, for argument's sake, this lower exercise ends up being a deadlift. This upper exercise is a push-up. Well, I've seen that their hips are kind of tight. Maybe we're early in the workout, and like I've seen them get into a better deadlift position before. So maybe I'll choose a lower body mobility exercise like a pigeon stretch, or some, active release type stretching for their hips specifically. So now they're primed when they go back to their first exercise to really get more out of it. So I'll find myself doing that a lot, especially if there's ever been someone that in the consultation we've identified maybe there's some areas of corrective exercise we want to work on, but we don't want to do it at the expense of missing out on some of these important exercises that are going to drive more significant results.
Yeah, I like that too, because I think for some of your clients, like if you have these paired appropriately, there's oftentimes going to be some welcomed rest.
Yeah.
And so they may not be as bought in on the mobility at the beginning of the workout, like it's sacrificing, but all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I'll definitely work on that here.
It's kind of like sneaking the spoonful of sugar in the medicine, right? Like
Exactly.
making sure that like the medicine still tastes good and you're getting it done. Lastly, we might even pair an accessory, or we call this maybe a goal exercise. Sometimes you know, it's kind of hard to justify just having someone do some regular old bicep curls, especially if you don't get to see them a lot. But if that person wants to build their arms, well, you better be doing some bicep curls with them or some tricep extensions. Those are my favorite. Regardless, this is a great spot to put something like that so that you are still demonstrating that you're helping them do something to get towards their goals. You listen to what they want. You're delivering on that without sacrificing it for some other stuff. So another way of kind of swinging something else in there, making sure that they're getting the value that they want without taking away a bunch of time for some of the more primary or pertinent things that you want to work on with them in a session.
Yeah, and I'll give you guys just one or two examples here, specifically one of the clients that I've worked with for quite some time now. And I'll give you an example because he's definitely the client, as Dave mentioned, he loves training core. He's already got a strong core, but I know he enjoys it, so I'm always going to tag it in. And so for him, a nice set that we've done, you know, would be, let's say, lower body, which of course he doesn't love to do as much, but I make him prioritize. But let's say we've got some sort of reverse lunge, like a dumbbell reverse lunge, because for him that's a really common way we end up loading it. So maybe exercise 1, we're prioritizing that dumbbell reverse lunge. But again, he's pretty strong, he's well conditioned. I'd say he's more of an intermediate to advanced client. So we can go from a challenging lower body to a challenging upper body. So we'll go from those dumbbell reverse lunges to maybe a challenging push-up variation. Maybe it's dumbbell chest press or something to offset it, right? You know, we've got a lot of options there. Even a back exercise because he's got pretty good grip strength, so that wouldn't be too bad for him. And then that third exercise, we could go right into something like a band or a cable rotation. And so for someone like him, it's definitely more of an intermediate to advanced setup. He's working quite a bit throughout the system, but that core exercise, right, it's not so taxing that it's going to be impacting anything in the superset that comes next. And so all of a sudden, though, thankfully for him, because he likes to accomplish a lot in our session, now after that core exercise, we probably only need like 30 to 60 seconds, and he's going to be ready for this one again. Now, to compare that to someone who's a little bit more deconditioned, if I did that same set with someone who's not as well trained, they're not as accustomed to exercise, they might need 2 full minutes, 2 to 3 minutes to recover from that full body session. And to the same point too, same client, because I just have him fresh in my brain, is also the accessory goal. Obviously, he loves training arms. Why wouldn't he?
Who doesn't?
And so for him, if I took that same superset we did, let's say a reverse lunge to some sort of press or whatever it is, then I could go right into a bicep or a tricep. Truthfully, I probably would like to offset the chest press and go more of a bicep curl, but he's a client who, you know, some of those clients, they kind of like to feel certain muscles burn, and so he would be an example of like, hey, maybe I would go chest press to triceps. So just to give you guys some ideas and examples of, there's a lot of ways of putting this together, and so I think the magic for you guys being able to apply it and use it is, first off, I think you should try some of these things on yourself. It's going to be a very different way of training, but try a triplex one day that's driven through like, you know, lower upper core. Try it with mobility. Try it with like an accessory movement. That's where a leg extension, a calf raise, a bicep, a shoulder raise, whatever it is, just to get a feel for it and start using it with the clients that you guys are working with as well.
Yeah, and this is a great way to add variety to a workout without changing up a whole workout. Let's say, for example, you wanted to implement all 3 of these and you had 3 triplexes. Well, maybe the first one has a core exercise in the third position. The second one has a mobility exercise, and then the third one has sort of one of those accessory or goal exercises where you're working glutes or biceps or triceps, something like that. That's a great way to kind of keep a workout fresh consistently without really changing the bones and all the things that are helping drive the big results, which are going to be all of these first 2 exercises in the triplexes.
Love that. And then as we move further on, so again, you've got a lot of options with level 1, right? There's a lot of variety there for you guys, literally endless possibilities. Level 2 now you can see like, oh wow, I talked about my client where based on those moves, that might be taxing for some people. Like I might choose different moves for someone who was like earlier on. But all of a sudden now we start tagging together 3 of our primary movement categories. Again, personally for me, I love training that way. Like it's a fun way to train. I'll be honest, these days I'm in total dad mode. Like I'm filming these videos for you guys. I don't have a ton of training time. So even for like 30 and 45 minute training sessions for clients who are pretty well versed in exercise, you can get a lot done without like overdoing it. And so thinking about pairing a lower body movement, a push and a pull, and obviously the orders of our pull and our push could change based upon the pairings that we talked about with our bi-plexes, but you can see how this is now going to be a lot more taxing. Not only might it require more recovery time for someone afterwards, but also the magic of the selection. So I'll just give us one example, and I'll let you jump in here too. You know, let's say we still want to prioritize the attack movement. Like, what's going to be the one we want to get the most out of? We're going to train the hardest, or maybe it's the most taxing and technical. Some sort of squatting, lunging, hinging, one of our movement categories. Let's say for someone, I don't know, that could be a back squat. It could be a heavy, challenging double kettlebell front squat. That will be my first primary movement. Now, if I go right into another challenging movement, let's say it's a challenging dumbbell row or even like a heavy cable single arm row, that's gonna be much more demanding than if I do a goblet squat followed up by, let's say, like a suspension trainer row. And so there's still a lot to be said about the movements you're gonna pair together. Some of it you're gonna find over time. We're gonna give you guys some more examples of that. But based upon the level of the person, the preferences of the person, that's gonna probably dictate like how challenging are these second two exercises relative to the first.
Yeah, and to speak to that, one of the strategies that I try to employ when I'm working with my clients is this first exercise. This is the one that we're loading up heavy, right? This is one that's delivering some good strength benefits, right? Maybe we're doing a heavy RDL somewhere in the 6 to 8 range with some appreciable weight, right? A challenging weight. But then I'm gonna dial down the weight and go into a push, and maybe like this ends up being laying down on a bench and doing an alternating flat dumbbell press. So I'm not using like maximal weights, a little bit more endurance, a little coordination based, so I'm getting a little more complexity. And then I'm gonna maybe take it down another notch when we go and do our pull. And maybe I'm using a resistance band, right? Where there's very low complexity, very low weight, but maybe the endurance is what's stepping it up, right? And I don't have to challenge them too much because they're probably a little fatigued from these. So I'm slowly, dropping down the intensity of not just the weight, but the movement, what I'm asking from them throughout this process. And that usually delivers a pretty good training effect.
Yeah, I like that. And this is one good example of the gap between like what we've learned and covered inside the certification and then the application piece in training. Because, again, if you guys are watching this video, you've probably gone through the NASM course with us, or you've gone through the NASM course in general, and you think about let's call it the level that you're in, stabilization, muscular endurance, hypertrophy. Well, not every exercise and all the reps need to match in the workout, right? I just want you guys to know, because this is very much how we see it. To Dave's point, you might have an exercise that you are training like a challenging 6 to 8. Right, and that may fit in. That may more so fit like, okay, cool. Maybe if someone's right around there, we're gonna say like they're probably in kind of like a muscular development phase. We're trying to gain some muscle.
Yep.
But then the second exercise that Dave talked about, again, it's alternating. Maybe it's 8 to 12 reps per side.
Totally.
But then that pulling exercise, this might be like a 15 to 20 rep like band resistance pull. Again, for the right client, gonna feel very challenging, but if you look at the rep ranges, you're like, well, that's kind of like a muscular endurance range, but think about it. What we train first is gonna be the main training effect, and the other stuff is gonna kind of be ancillary benefit that comes afterwards.
Cake, icing.
Love it. So again, hopefully from this video, we want you guys to be thinking about, okay, now I'm seeing how I could pair together 3 exercises at a time. You've got to be doing this some on your own, and also the people that you are starting to work with right now, without thinking big picture. We're going to get into in the coming weeks how to set up your first program, how the week fits into this day, but even right now, just set up one individual great workout for yourself, and something that we've probably covered in some different areas, but I'll say it in here as well. Just kind of your standard thought process. If you're doing bi-plexes, supersets you might call it, right? You're probably gonna get through 3 or 4 of those in a workout.
Yep.
If you're doing triplexes, you're gonna get through 2, maybe 3.
Yep.
And a lot of that will have to do with how complex were the movements, how many single arm, single leg things were there, and we'll get into it over time where all of a sudden, like, we can mix bi-plexes and triplexes together at different stages of the workout.
Absolutely.